John 14:1 says, "Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me." Let not your heart be troubled is the first thing that we need to remember. That although this is a difficult time, we need to make sure that we don't let our hearts and our carnal minds go into places that it doesn't need to go. That we get overly nervous, overly panicked, overly scared, forgetting who our Father is. This is Jesus saying this, and he says, you believe in God. And he's saying, so if you believe in God, why don't you also believe in me? Because Jesus also says the only way to get through God is through him. So you cannot not believe in Jesus if you think you're going to get to God. So no reason to be overly troubled. You believe in God, let's also believe in Jesus. And sometimes I know that believing in God is the easy part. There aren't too many people, even people who call themselves atheists, whenever they're atheists and they're in trouble, they'll start praying to God, but I thought you didn't believe in God. So believing in God is the easy part. Believing in God's plan for our life, that's the part that's difficult, because that requires some trust. Now, not just trust in God's existence, because we already determined that believing in God, that he exists, is easy. But what's hard is believing in his ways, believing in his word, and mainly believing in his promise. Trust that his word is true. And I say this all the time, do you believe God's word? We read God's word, but are we really believing God's word? And that can be hard at times, especially in times like this when it seems that life is spinning out of control and we have no control over it, and we're just kind of in a boat without oars, drifting and praying for the best. If you don't know, the last pandemic that this country had was in 1918. So it's been almost 100 years since we have faced anything like this. So most people who are living today have never experienced something like this. But think about it, just last week we were here, everything was fine. Although the coronavirus was here for many months before last Sunday. So what happened between last Sunday and a couple of days ago? If you've noticed, everything changed when one thing happened. When the NBA canceled the season. That pushed the ball down the hill. That's when panic set up. Because people said, oh my gosh, if they're going to cancel NBA, that means they're willing to forego billions of dollars. This must be serious. And that's, if you think about it, that's when everything changed, did it not? That's when we realized, oh wow, this thing is serious. But being a Christian in this thing means that we have to still stay committed to the belief that we know who we serve. And that is trusting and knowing that God can still and will still protect us. Now, when we trust that God will guide us, that will allow us to have confidence to walk this thing all the way to the end. Now, it's pretty obvious that we are living in some very uncertain times, very difficult times, very scary times, and we are faced with somewhat of an unpredictable future. Some may even say it's a scary, unpredictable future, because this virus is something like this country has not seen in over 100 years. Things have gotten really, really real now, have they not? And I think that, I was thinking this until Lady Tia said something. I was thinking, okay, we're about to hit another post-9/11 way of thinking. Remember after 9/11, the country all of a sudden became the most religious country in the world. Churches were packed. There were lines outside. Everybody was looking to God. But yet that was one incident that we knew we could stop because we became on guard. So why aren't we flocking to church now? Yes, there's an issue of touching, But don't you think this is now when the churches should be packed, although the government is saying don't gather? I heard one pastor say this probably or could be a ploy from the enemy to stop us from getting together. How can the Satan take over if he doesn't stop our unity? That's what happens when you separate your people. That's when Satan can get in. If we're together, Satan can't get in. But when he separates us, that's when he can get in. And they're telling us don't congregate as a church. That's separation. That could be just what the enemy wants. So I'm not going to make any assumptions or any predictions, but we as believers have to wonder exactly what is this? Is this just one of these happenstance things? Did it just happen? Is it just part of life? Is it just is what it is? Is it a warning from God to say, you know what, you guys are a little bit out of control? I need you to focus on something else besides yourselves? Or is this an attack and a ploy from the enemy? It's got to be one of those three things. It's life, it's God, it's the enemy. Now, it doesn't make a difference which one it is, but there is one thing that we have to know is true. There is one thing that is needed. There is only one way to get through this, and that is by trusting in God.